Hello again, and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Friday the 3rd of March. I'm Andrew Wilson, and this is Scotland at 7. This evening, I have the latest daily update from Ukraine on day 373 of the illegal Russian war of aggression and imperial ambition, and then I'll bring you a selection of today's headlines from Scotland and around the world. Evgeny Prigozhin, the head of Russia's Wagner Group, has called on President Volodymyr Zelensky to order a withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from the besieged eastern city of Bakhmut. Bakhmut is practically surrounded by Wagner fighters, with only one route left for Ukrainian forces, Prigozhin said in a video published today. The video has been geolocated to the village of Paraskovivka, 4.5 miles north of the centre of Bakhmut. Ukrainian forces have blown up a railway bridge inside Bakhmut, according to a report. Video of a controlled explosion posted on social media and geolocated by CNN was shared widely today, along with unconfirmed reports that it was a sign that Ukraine was preparing to withdraw from the city. Ukraine has ordered a mandatory evacuation of families and vulnerable residents from Kupiansk and adjacent northeastern territories amid fears that Russian forces will retake the frontline eastern city and rail hub. Russian troops retreated from key cities in the northeastern Kharkiv region, including Kupiansk, and Ukraine recaptured it last September. The evacuation order was due to an unstable security situation caused by Russia's constant shelling of the town and its surroundings, the Kharkiv Regional Military Administration has said. Foreign ministers of the so-called Quad Group denounced Russia's threat to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine as unacceptable, according to a statement issued after a meeting earlier today. The ministers also said they opposed any unilateral actions to increase tensions in the South China Sea, and expressed concerns about the militarization of disputed territories in a thinly veiled reference to China. The Quad Group includes India, Australia, Japan, and the United States of America. Mikhailo Podolyak, an advisor to the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, has again issued a denial that Ukraine has mounted any attacks within Russian territory. President Vladimir Putin said on Thursday that Russia had been hit by a terrorist attack in Bryansk and vowed to crush what he said was a Ukrainian sabotage group that had fired at civilians. Ukraine accused Russia of staging a false provocation. The Kremlin said earlier today it would take measures to prevent a repeat of what it described as a border incursion. 10 people remain considered missing and 5 people are now known to have died when a missile hit a residential building in Zaporizhia in the early hours of yesterday morning. Belarus has sentenced the Nobel Peace Prize-winning dissident Ales Bialyatsky to 10 years in prison as part of Alexander Lukashenko's purge of opponents after the 2020 pro-democracy protests against his rule. Bialyatsky, a pro-democracy activist, is the founder of Vyazna, the authoritarian country's most prominent human rights group. He was detained in July last year and charged with smuggling cash into Belarus to fund his group's activities, but is widely recognized as being persecuted for his opposition to Lukashenko. Bialyatsky was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize alongside the Russian human rights organization Memorial and the Ukrainian human rights organization Center for Civil Liberties in October. Joe Biden, the US President, and Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor, will focus their discussions in Washington earlier today on war aid for Ukraine and may also touch on concerns that China may provide lethal aid to Russia, a senior US administration official has said. The US is expected to announce a new military aid package for Ukraine worth roughly $400 million and comprising mainly of ammunition, 2 officials and a person familiar with the package have told Reuters. And Switzerland's defence ministry earlier today said it had received a request from its German counterparts to allow Rheinmetall AG to acquire some of Switzerland's mothballed Leopard 2 tanks. The request said that the tanks would not be sent to Ukraine, but would be used to backfill gaps created by the handover of Leopard 2s by Germany and NATO and other EU allies. MPs looking into Boris Johnson's conduct during the Partygate scandal warned today that evidence strongly suggested that breaches of coronavirus guidance would have been obvious to the then Prime Minister and to his aides. The Cross-Party Privileges Committee is examining whether Johnson knowingly misled the House of Commons in his account of the scandal, which centred on illegal gatherings in Downing Street and Whitehall during the pandemic in 2020 and 2021. Johnson is now expected to provide evidence to the committee later this month. In a report published earlier today, MPs noted that the Commons may have been misled on a number of occasions, such as on the 8th of December 2021, when Johnson told parliamentarians that he relied upon repeated assurances that the rules had not been broken. The evidence strongly suggests that breaches of guidance would have been obvious to Mr Johnson at the time he was at the gatherings, the MPs wrote. There is evidence that those who were advising Mr Johnson about what to say to the press and in the House were themselves struggling to contend that some of the gatherings were within the rules. The damning report includes one witness saying the then Prime Minister told a packed Number 10 gathering in November 2020, when strict COVID restrictions were in force, that this is probably the most unsocially distanced gathering in the UK right now. Other new evidence includes a message from a Number 10 official in April 2021, 6 months before the first reports of the parties emerged, saying a colleague was worried about leaks of the PM having a piss-up, and to be fair, I don't think it's unwarranted. While the 24-page document is only an interim report, intended to give Johnson notice of lines of inquiry before he testifies, its damning findings and wealth of newly released information make grim reading for the former PM and his allies. A formal finding that Johnson deliberately misled Parliament could see him suspended. Under parliamentary rules, an exclusion of 14 days or longer would mean that Johnson's constituents could seek a recall petition to remove him as their MP, and that's a viable occurrence given the very slim majority in his West London seat. Johnson responded to the report with an immediate and orchestrated fightback, seeking to discredit the findings and the committee. Johnson insisted that the committee release shows he never committed contempt of Parliament, because the MPs have no evidence otherwise. Now, of course, this process is far from over, but proving that Johnson knew he was misleading the Commons is rather a high bar, so the greased piglet could squirm free again. Proving what Johnson did or didn't know, this is after all a man who we now know, thanks to Matt Hancock and Isabel Oakeshott, who doesn't know the difference between a percentage and a fraction. Aided by statements from supportive MPs, Johnson said it was surreal to discover that the committee proposes to rely on evidence culled and orchestrated by Sue Gray, who has just been appointed Chief of Staff to the leader of the Labour Party. Gray, the senior Cabinet Office official who led the internal inquiry into the events, which reported last May, quit yesterday to become Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, prompting inevitable accusations from Johnson and his supporters that her report, which Johnson accepted in full at the time, could not now be trusted. A spokesperson for the Privileges Committee dismissed Johnson's arguments, saying the findings were not based on the Sue Gray report, but on witness accounts and evidence supplied by the government directly to the committee. In contrast, MPs argued that there did seem to be contemporaneous awareness that repeated social gatherings were unlikely to be within the rules, and that the supposed assurances Johnson cited about the rules being followed was simply his media team trying to explain the events to his journalists. The account of the November 2020 event, when restrictions barred indoor gatherings of 2 or more people and mandated social distancing of 2 metres, says that Johnson gave a speech to an audience standing 4 or 5 deep. The committee, which began its investigation in June 2022, will produce its final conclusions following Johnson's oral evidence in the week beginning the 20th of March, the MPs added. The UK Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, is set to protect Britons from rising bills by maintaining the government's energy price guarantee at £2,500 for another 3 months, according to a person familiar with the matter. Hunt has asked energy companies to prepare for the extension, the person said, speaking on condition of anonymity. Without prolonging the guarantee, which limits what a typical household would pay on energy each year, bills were due to rise by an average 20% from April the 1st. The Treasury did not immediately respond to requests to comment. The energy price guarantee was due to rise to £3,000 on the 1st of April, and Hunt previously resisted calls to change course. He said in February that such a move would be too expensive for the Treasury. However, he's since come under strong pressure from consumer groups and charities to act, amid warnings of more people being pushed into fuel poverty. Hunt is due to deliver his spring budget on the 15th of March, and economists expect he'll have an extra £10 billion to work with thanks to better-than-expected tax receipts and lower wholesale energy prices. However, Treasury officials caution that the picture is still difficult, and Hunt has limited room for manoeuvre. Raising the guarantee to £3,000 would have saved the government about £2.5 billion, according to the consultancy Cornwall Insight. After gas prices spiked to record levels in 2022, a mild winter has curbed power and gas demand, easing the burden on the Chancellor. The cost of the government support package might drop by about £3 billion in the next fiscal year from £25 billion during the current period, according to Investec plc estimates. Average domestic energy prices in the UK are capped by the regulator Ofgem. Steep rises in the cost of energy pushed that cap up to £4,279 in January this year. It is due to fall to £3,280 in April, still above the level of the government's energy price guarantee. When the price gap is higher than the guarantee, as is currently the case, the government shields consumers by making up the difference. Cornwall Insight forecasts that Ofgem's price cap will drop to £2,153 in July, which is below the government subsidy level. Freezing the guarantee will not protect the most vulnerable, the SNP has warned. Commenting, the SNP's economy spokesperson Stuart Hosey MP said, "If the Chancellor thinks that freezing the energy price guarantee will get voters back on side, he's more deluded than we thought. Extending the £2,500 EPG will not protect the most vulnerable in our society. That can only be done by putting money back into people's pockets." And that is exactly what the SNP is proposing. With wholesale gas prices down 75%, the UK government has the ability to not just freeze energy prices, but to reduce them by 20%. That would make a real difference to households right across these aisles. Scotland is an energy-rich country, he continued, yet families continue to be fuel poor, all because of a continued Westminster control. By refusing to act, the Tories are once again showing people in Scotland that they would be better off as an independent country, with the full powers needed to secure our energy supply and reduce bills for households. A Russian billionaire who is a close associate of the former owner of Chelsea FC, Roman Abramovich, has launched a legal challenge against the UK government's sanctions imposed on him in response to Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. The case is the first to be launched in the UK courts by a Russian hit with sanctions following the invasion, and could serve as a test case for other oligarchs seeking to overturn restrictions such as travel bans and asset freezes. Eugene Schvidler has accused the Foreign Office of significant errors in its decision to target him with an asset freezing order and a ban on any aircraft or ships that he owns entering British territory. According to the billionaire's legal claim, he has suffered serious hardship since being hit with the sanctions, which led to 2 of his private jets being impounded. At the time, the then Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, described that measure as depriving Putin's cronies of their luxury toys. The claim, filed on 24th of February, hinges on the extent to which Schvidler can be considered an involved person in Russia's actions. Schvidler is challenging the government's assessment of his association with Abramovich and his role in the steel firm Evraz, which has been accused by the government of supporting the Russian war effort. Schvidler has had a close relationship with Abramovich for decades. According to the UK sanctions list, their relationship stretches back to the acquisition of the oil firm Sibneft during the post-Soviet carve-up of Russia's natural resources wealth. The government imposed sanctions on Schvidler on the 24th of March last year, 2 weeks after ministers took the same action against Abramovich, citing clear links with Putin. The Foreign Office said Schvidler had obtained financial benefit from his relationship with the oligarch. It also cited his role as a non-executive director of Evraz, the coal and steel producer that Abramovich part owns, or owned, and the government claims has assisted with the Russian war effort. Scotland's council leaders have made a new pay offer to teachers in an attempt to resolve the long-running pay dispute. The offer was made formally in writing to teaching trade unions with agreement of all 32 council leaders at a COSLA special meeting of leaders which took place today. According to the Scottish Government, this would be the largest pay package given to teachers in more than 20 years, with most seeing their salaries rise by £5,200 in April, if the offer is accepted. It would amount to a cumulative rise of 33% for most teachers since January 2018, and would bring the starting salary for a fully qualified teacher, which is already the highest in the UK, to £38,650 after probation by January 2024. The offer is in 3 parts and covers the period the 1st of April 2022 to the 31st of July 2024. It offers a 7% increase from April the 1st last year, with a cap at a salary of £80,000 or over. There would be a further increase of 5% with effect from April the 1st this year, again with a cap at a salary of £80,000 or over. And from January the 1st, 2024, there would be a further increase of 2%, with a cap at a salary of £80,000 or over, where a £1,600 flat rate uplift would then apply. COSLA's resources spokesperson, Councillor Katie Hagman, said, "We have reached a position today whereby we sincerely hope our trade union partners can take this revised offer to their membership for a vote. Scotland's council leaders fully value all of their workforce and recognise the invaluable contribution teachers make to the lives of our children and young people. Council leaders are clear that it is in all of our interests, not least those of our children, young people and families, to conclude the teachers' pay negotiations as quickly as possible to bring back stability and certainty to our schools." The Scottish Greens education spokesperson Ross Greer MSP, who was involved with the talks, welcomed the frank approach of the teaching unions during the discussions and pointed to the challenges caused to the negotiations in Scotland by the actions of the Westminster government. He said, "This has been a very difficult process, largely as a result of the cuts Westminster has made to the Scottish Government's budget. That's why I appreciate the frank and constructive way the teacher union colleagues have engaged with us over the last few days in particular." And Scotland's Education Secretary, Shirley Ann Somerville, said, "Teachers make an invaluable contribution to the lives of our children and young people. We have looked for compromise and we have arrived at a deal that is fair, affordable and sustainable for everyone involved. The Scottish Government is supporting this deal with total funding of over £320 million across this year and next." Just as we came on air, the EIS, the main teachers' union in Scotland, announced that it would be suspending industrial action pending discussion with its members with regard to the offer that was made by the government and COSLA today. Humza Yousaf leads in the latest poll of SNP members' voting preferences for the party's leadership contest. A new survey of SNP members from Savanta Comres puts Yousaf on 31%, Kate Forbes on 25%, and Ash Regan on 11%. Some 32% are undecided, but with don't knows excluded, the results show Yousaf on 46%, Forbes on 37%, and Regan on 17%. 515 members of the SNP were polled for the Daily Telegraph from February the 23rd to the 1st of March. In the last poll of SNP voters' preferences from the Big Partnership, 31% were undecided who they want to see succeed Nicola Sturgeon. Finance Secretary Kate Forbes was then in the lead on 28%, followed by Yousaf on 20% and Regan on 7%. Chris Hopkins, a director at Savanta, said, "This first poll of SNP members really indicates that the race to replace Nicola Sturgeon is too close to call." While Humza Yousaf narrowly leads Kate Forbes, with such a high proportion of undecideds, it's difficult to be able to say definitively who is really in the lead. This is a unique first look at what actual members who can vote in this leadership election think, rather than the poll of SNP voters who don't have a say in electing the leader. With over 3 weeks to go, there is no room for complacency, he went on. A man who has sent threatening messages about assassination to Scotland's First Minister and later helped to abduct a sheriff has been jailed today for more than 5 years. William Curtis was convicted last month of sending threatening messages to Nicola Sturgeon and of sending or causing a threatening message to be sent to former MSP Stuart Stevenson in 2019, and that was following a trial at the High Court in Glasgow. Curtis and co-accused Philip Mitchell were also found guilty of assaulting and abducting Sheriff Robert MacDonald in a car park in Banff in June 2021. Earlier in the trial, jurors watched what appeared to be mobile phone footage from the morning of the 29th of June 2021. Sheriff MacDonald, who has presided in Banff for almost 5 years, recalled getting out of his car when two men appeared. The court heard that Mr. Mitchell said, "You are Sheriff Robert MacDonald, and I am here to make a citizen's arrest." The sheriff told the jurors in the High Court, "I think he grabbed my upper arm. I certainly could not get past him. I tried to break free, but Mitchell wrestled me to the ground and then sat on top of me. I was flat on my back and Mitchell was astride me. He was literally sitting across my waist." The sheriff said Mitchell accused him of running a corrupt or kangaroo court. Sheriff MacDonald said he was totally bemused by what was happening, having previously ruled in Mr. Mitchell's favour in a civil case. Earlier today, Lord Weir told Curtis and Mitchell that they were entirely unrepentant for their actions. He sentenced Curtis to 18 months for the 3 charges of sending threatening and abusive messages backdated to the 1st of July 2021 when he was taken into custody. Lord Weir said he was further sentenced to 4 years and 2 months for his part in abducting the sheriff, the term of which will begin on completion of the first part of the sentence. Mitchell was jailed for 4 years for the incident involving Sheriff MacDonald. Work to restore consultant-led obstetric care at Dr. Gray's Hospital in Elgin will proceed following Scottish Government approval of plans to re-establish services. The plan for an integrated maternity service for the north of Scotland, developed jointly by NHS Grampian and NHS Highland, will be backed by up to £6.6 million of Scottish Government investment. A phased return to obstetric maternity services at Dr. Gray's will start with enhanced complex obstetric antenatal care and day assessment later this year. Elective caesarean births will restart in early 2025, with full consultant-led services returning in 2026. A networked model of care with Rakemore Hospital will see Moray women offered a choice of place of birth in early 2025, once refurbishment work has concluded. Refurbishment of the Rakemore maternity unit will be supported through a further £5 million of earmarked funding. In 2018, due to staff shortages, NHS Grampian changed Dr. Gray's maternity services from an obstetric consultant-led service to a midwife-led service. Work has been underway since that date to restore consultant-led maternity services to the hospital. Following extensive local engagement, NHS Lothian and NHS Grampian submitted a plan to the integrated maternity service for the north, with consultant-led obstetric services at Dr. Gray's to the Cabinet Secretary in December last year. The Health Secretary, Humza Yousaf, said NHS Grampian and Highland's ambitious plans will deliver what local people have asked for, a return to obstetric maternity services at Dr. Gray's in a safe and sustainable way. I thank both health boards and their clinical teams for the collaborative and innovative work that has gone into the development of this plan. I am grateful to Professor Linda de Kicker, who was appointed to provide external assistance for her advice and support, which has been crucial in getting us to this point. Delivering the plan will not be without its challenges, he continued, and the collaborative approach that NHS Grampian and NHS Highland have in place will provide a solid platform for shared delivery. Professor de Kesker has agreed to continue to provide external assurance in the first year of the delivery period, and I very much welcome this. And that is all that we have for you this evening. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland relies on the support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs and culture. Please help us to continue to make these programmes, to develop the station, and to make new programmes for you. Our programmes will always be free to view, but if you can afford £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. We have set ourselves a target of raising £30,000 in order that we can continue to pay the bills. To everyone who has already donated, and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment to Broadcasting Scotland as a Broadcasting Scotland supporter, thank you very much. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way that helps our work and promotes the station, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. You can find us on Twitter at BroadcastScot. Please like and retweet us there. And you can also find us on Facebook by searching for Broadcasting Scotland. When you're watching us on YouTube, it would be great if you could like and subscribe to Broadcasting Scotland on that platform. Just click on the wee bell. Now, we will be back at 12 noon on Sunday with the next edition of the Full Scottish, so please come back and join us then. On this day in 1847 saw the birth in Edinburgh of Alexander Graham Bell, who would of course go on to develop and patent the telephone. He said, "When one door closes, another opens. But we often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we do not see the one that is opened for us." There are no closed doors here on Broadcasting Scotland. I'd like to thank everyone who's been watching this evening, and I hope that you have a very peaceful weekend. Bye-bye.